We're here at the Red Rock Resort with Jon and Chris. These guys have been working with me for quite a while, and I wanted to basically create an open mic interview series where these guys can ask me whatever questions for the next 15 minutes and hopefully create an engaging conversation for everyone who's watching.
We were talking in the car about like what kind of questions we wanted to pick your brain for, so maybe like some old school pickup stories. What's one of your like most memorable stories?
Well, the most memorable stories from us are from the old school days, back in around 2002 when we first got started. One of the things that made us super, kind of famous in the community was that back in the day, so many people who were studying pickup were under the belief that the only way to pick up girls, because you weren't rich, you weren't good looking, you weren't famous. So if you want to get girls that were supposedly out of your league, which I think is a totally ridiculous concept, but the only way that people who were brainwashed by the media to believe that this concept existed was to hypnotize girls. And people believed this so deeply that they would study things like neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis, trying to convince girls or manipulate girls to believe that you were something that you weren't. But it was so deeply in the beliefs of people that there was layers, little fraternities around the world of guys who study this stuff. I mean, this is 15 years ago, and it was such an interesting thing to us that when we started traveling around to meet these guys, we would see these guys out in the field, in the bars and clubs, and they would have like balls and a little chain attached to it. They'd have memorized patterns and routines from hypnotists. And everyone was trying it. I admit I even tried this stuff because I didn't even know what was out there. If you go study RSD now, it seems totally ridiculous because a lot of what we teach is about conveying who you are and doing it in a cool way, using the rhythms of the interaction and having interstate and game and trying to calibrate. But back then it was all about these weird routine stacks. And people still actually study this stuff today because that was the next level. The next level is we used to travel around to these layers, Tyler and I, and people, we would meet them and they'd be like, yeah, we're trying all these patterns and routines and hypnotic poems, subliminal messages. They're called weasel phrases. One of the things people would say is they're trying to use weird subliminal weasel phrases. Like they would say, I feel like we have such an incredible connection. It's like a glow of light that is below me. It was just super whack.
Did that ever work for you? Or
How many blowjobs have you gotten out of this, Nick?
Zero. From that stuff was just super duper whack. But what it did was it gave people that were nerds like me and all these other people who were nerds the confidence to actually approach girls because you were so believed in these things. That would lead to normal conversations that actually led to results, like actual game. And people then started studying humor and all sorts of other things. And the interesting thing is people were saying, we used to travel from layer to layer saying, look, you could actually pick up girls without hypnosis. And now for them, that was an epiphany back then. Like, really? It's like, yeah, you could use these other whack-ass things like magic and tarot cards and gimmicks and routine stacks and peacock where you pretend to be someone that you're not.
right.
With these routine stories where you're telling someone a story about your life, it's really fascinating, it's engaging. The problem is none of it's real. And I think that was the basis behind this whack book about us called The Game. But at the same time, it was still better than everyone else's stuff out there. People talking about super dates and romance through flowers and dating. The problem is with that concept is that works in relationships. my wife loves getting flowers, but when you're trying to seduce a girl and pick up a girl at the bar, the art of giving girls chocolates and flowers and the things that show that you still care about your girl doesn't work in a bar or club or from initial pickup. So we started studying was destroying, after the book the game, these routine stacks and gimmicks that were complete bogus, and started working on developing our own life identity, self-actualization, identity level change, becoming the kind of people that we want to be, such a bridging the gap between who people think you are and who you think you are. And doing it so that who your authentic self is comes through without you having to worry about trying to front that you've done really fascinating things in your life. Or that you're the kind of person you could hold his own, has his core values, has the right attitude, and could withstand rejection or withstand challenges, and have that open mind and understand the process of how to view life, offering value, higher value. A lot of the core principles that we teach today. It's just that it takes a very long time for us to learn it ourselves. So if you go to an RSD event now, most of our guys are pretty cool guys. If you go to our events, say 15 years ago, they're the most whack guys you'll ever see in your life.
It's kind of crazy, right? Because like back then it was more towards like manipulating women, right? And it's something that RSD still gets kind of attacked for nowadays, would you say?
I think that a lot of what we learned back then was nerds that were trying to put on a front of airs of what they think cool was, not knowing how cool was supposed to be defined or even what cool was. Because I do think that having a sense of cool is the secureness you have with your self-identity and be able to convey that, and doing that in a way where, the outcome is not something you depend on.
Right.
I think that as a result of that, you're more likely to get the outcome you want. And if you look at RSD as a whole, our culture, our community, our movement is about how to do that. So much of what we teach is to that point, or even branching out into higher purpose in general, or even showing the principles that we teach and how it's been working in terms of business and what have you. Because although we had training wheels when we were first teaching and learning in terms of like routines, in terms of gaming, as opposed to gaming in the sense of like having a cool identity and conveying that with your rhythms being like how your energy and how it flows out of you. I think that a lot of that has to have developed through time, through our curriculum, through massive, massive trial and error. And when anyone first starts, I think a lot of people will not calibrate. So a lot of students will go out to the bar and club, and so they'll get not the results they want when they first start. Some people, I've even heard girls complain, oh, this guy tried to kiss me, he was so creepy. Are you teaching this creepy stuff? And it's like we're teaching guys to go on a certain path, and you have to start somewhere. It's like golf. It's like, are you teaching this guy to be a bad golfer? The guy's a newbie, he's a rookie. And as their skill sets rise, just like how all of our skill sets rise, you become more eloquent with your flow and how you present yourself.
In the blueprint, Owen talks about the transition from routine game to natural game. And he told a little story about how when he said that he wanted to take the company in that direction, everyone was kind of laughing, like, what, you want us to be chodes? Do you remember when that happened, and what was the point where things started to shift for you, where you saw the value in being natural?
Owen's always been a visionary, and I very clearly remember when Owen was at Project Hollywood Mansion with me, and we had a meeting about our content. It was because a lot of us were using scripts, like an if-then-else computer program, like on the basis that all girls were kind of the same. You know? It was pretty silly. And we knew that it wasn't true, but it was like at least a blueprint of something to do. And then Owen came to us, he's like, look, there's a lot of core principles behind what's being said. It's not the words that are being said, it's how you say it, and the principles of understanding why you're saying it. And what you're saying is not as important many of the times. I mean, what you're saying is also important to calibrate, so you're not just saying random stuff. There's a direction. And I remember a lot of us were against it because we didn't know how to convey what we were wanting to convey. We didn't understand the basis of the principles of, okay, we're saying this, because this conveys this about our personality. This leads to interaction. This allows us to empathize with the situation, and all these different things where we calibrate now. A lot of it, what we were trying to say, we only understood it from the standpoint of we're trying to spike an emotion. And the definition of how we used to define attraction was defined as something that would allow the girl to have some kind of emotional spike of caring about you. And we were just trying to get her interested in you, and then so we could develop comfort and trust after we create some kind of emotional spike. Attraction now, under real social dynamics, is about showing, conveying those parts of yourself in a way that is fun and cool and allows them to develop a wide net of rapport, various things, so you can develop a sticky relationship. And then from a standpoint where you're able to convey that your life is full of value and you're sharing that value with the other person when you're interacting with that other person. And that's something that works in not just a dating relationship, but also in business or any aspect of your personal life.
I understand you used to also, like, you're not an instructor as in doing boot camps anymore, but you used to, right?
Yeah, I taught boot camps for several years.
Right. Okay.
I mean, every single person in our company has different defined goals and different defined roles and responsibilities, but as a CEO, I want to, as a standpoint of somebody who could lead, have gone through each and every role. So I've done basic video editing. I'm not as skilled as Jon. I've done instructing and teaching boot camps. However, people who are focusing just on that, like say Max, could definitely hit the field a lot stronger than me. I would say that I have a certain level of mastery over a plethora of skills, from law to human resources to finance to IT to instructing to teaching. As somebody who's the CEO, I consider myself somebody who has a general managerial sense of all the various aspects of the company. Yet there's so many people now who could do things better than me. I would say there's a lot of things I talk about a lot of times, how interns, people who first start, if they could do things like half as good as what I could do, then they're doing a good job as an intern. But as they progress from an intern to someone who has a full-time role in this company and in a managerial role, they have to do things better than me.
Right.
And I think that's something that's been a huge evolution in our company, because it took a long time of years of everyone getting more field experience in the company for us to evolve our skills so that we could get to that point.
I picked up Madison today, and I actually told him that it's kind of cool. Like, it's ironic, but I respect you so much because of this. Like, you had to, in order to build a company about like gaming and dating, you kind of had to stop gaming and dating, right? Like, and you had to focus more on the business side.
When we were in Project Hollywood Mansion, one of the things that upset me more than anything else was having to do business, because it interrupted my flow of being able to focus on game.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I respect you so much, because
You know, it was.
I could tell it sucked.
It wasn't ideal for me, because I was in the standpoint where my purpose in life was the game.
Right.
And anything that took away from that, which was business, was annoying to me. This is coming from the standpoint that I was in business school at the same time. So I wasn't completely delusional. I always wanted to learn more about business, and I was doing so. At the same time, though, having to spend so much time in the business and then seeing my partner like Owen hitting the field so hard was really frustrating. And it got to the point where, you know, his skill sets just shot so high. And then my business skill sets were, you know, what I was focusing on growing. And that allowed us to build RSD into what it is now, where a lot of the ideas I have in terms of infrastructure building is what's implemented into real social dynamics. Owen has a lot of knowledge about business insight, especially in terms of leadership and personal dynamics interactions. A lot of my knowledge comes from the technical standpoints of what you should and shouldn't do business-wise, as there's so many precedents from businesses. All businesses have a lot of basic principles in terms of how they're supposed to be run, in terms of all the building blocks. You know, every single company should have a department of IT and human resources and content development and what have you, and how it's supposed to run, how each department is supposed to work together. We take a lot of principles that have worked in other businesses. We'll see some business using a certain kind of technology, we'll utilize that, even though it's a completely different industry. We do stuff like that all the time. And it's my job to keep my eye out for these kind of things and also empower people that are doing the same thing and know whether their idea makes fiscal responsibility, and what is their idea something that is going to be financially justified for what we're working on at the time. Because we have so many projects we're working on. The cool thing is now we're in a position where we've grown so extensively that we could invest in all sorts of really fun, unusual projects, especially on the video production side, where we're really evolving our camera gear, our teams, and the creativity we're to convey to people. I mean, our video production quality is so good, it's better than many of the movies that you'll see on Netflix.
Right.
And then it's free, it's not even on Netflix. So we're continually evolving, it's amazing.
When you were doing cold approach pickup, were you doing a lot of networking as well? Or was that something that kind of came more into play while you were more business focused?
I was focusing on networking with other pickup artists for the purpose of learning game. And those same principles applied for networking later with entrepreneurs and people in my MBA program and people that were not interested in helping me for game because they didn't have game. They had business game. And a lot of principles were the same. I was trying to build relationships through offering value, sharing stories, sharing passions, connecting. And that's what allowed me to kind of get like a reputation back in the day as like a United Nations for pickup. We changed very quickly from that though, because when we turned from a situation where we were just learning and trying to help each other learn to a commercial entity and money started playing, it was kind of like a Game of Thrones where everyone was competing from the ground up until we won. And now we're in a situation where we're doing a lot of networking, but we're doing networking with other industry leaders from other industries. Our company is just, like a mid-sized company now as opposed to a startup small company. And as a result of that, we're able to relate more to companies that are, much, much larger. They have a massive staff like us. They've done business all around the world. They've had their ups and downs with, the media and their internal company and organization structures changed a lot. We've dealt with a lot of that. We're still somewhat of a new company. We were created in 2002, today is 2017, so it's been 15 years. And I know that, we might have this conversation maybe 15 years from now. And looking back on where we are now, we'll once again be a totally different company as we continue to expand and grow. Our path to growth is very solid. Our financials are strong, our company is strong. It's pretty cool to see the content also growing just as strong. And I think the last part is what really keeps our clients engaged and our fans engaged.
I know you guys you're looking to go into self-help, and I was kind of wondering if you and Owen had some sort of vision for that.
Owen has always talked about self-improvement from the early days when he was known, even before the Blueprint to Code was out, because that is what captivated people. It was the idea that there was actually self-improvement concepts that could be applied to studying pickup. A lot of people were focusing on just the pickup lines back in the day, as opposed to the concepts of self-actualization, identity level change, and how that applied to the pickup process. And as a result, pickup artists get a lot of bad rap because our first early years, our research, our first 2 years, was focused on how we move from hypnosis to canned routines, to eventually natural game, which is basically how normal people interact, and the most successful normal people get girls. And so it's funny because we'll actually go in organizations and we'll look at people who are it's a lot easier for us to hire somebody new who doesn't know anything about pickup, because most companies still people that are so brainwashed into the ultra whack stuff that we have to make them normal before they become good. I think that a lot of that process, though, is a learnable skill. We learned it. And so a lot of the self-help movement that we're building upon is those mindsets. If you look at somebody who I consider super ultra whack, it's usually people that are just value leeches. and they can't even understand the concept of why people would even network with you, or the idea of building a large network. To them, it's like weird. It's like, why don't you just have like 2 friends and some family? You can, but by expanding your eyes to the world and offering value and being open-minded to new experiences, you are able to transform and evolve your mind. And the same goes when you study different concepts of self-improvement, the concepts of the loss of fear when you're approaching people and viewing the world in similar mindset of social experimentation, the establishment of boundaries of which will and will not accept from other people so that your soul circle evolves on a higher level, the concept of how to network by having the right mindsets of value conveyance and having to help other people, how to connect other people with others, and also the core values that you want to define for yourself. Everyone wants a certain culture within their social circle or business circle. Ours is a focus on loyalty, trust, a positive outlook. More than anything else, those things I think have been the thing that allowed the brotherhood within Real Social Dynamics to stay there. And I think that the core movement that we've created of people that are always open-minded, continually learning and expanding in terms of their skill sets and their mind has been like a huge thing for us. So many people are just not coachable because they're not even open to new experiences, new ideas, new learnings. And so people have to get there first before they can actually dive into our programs and learn or dive into any kind of education. And if you don't, then you won't expand. I know somebody who was going to business school for the first time and took their first class and told me, when I came to business school, I thought I knew everything. I thought it'd be a waste of time. I wanted to try it out because people kept nagging me to try it out. And there's actually things out there that I didn't know. And I said, yeah, it makes sense because these people here that are teaching you built enterprises. And you created a company that lost money and never made a profit. And when you look at that from the standpoint of your failures and successes, your failures and successes in your personal life, your business life, your dating life, you have to have an open mind. And I think that when you do that, then you got to focus on identity level change. And that's a lot of what Owen talks about. I mean, a lot of it is about overcoming your fears, but it's also a lot of, the transformational processes and eliminating the mental roadblocks. A lot of people have these things inside of their head that we would say are success barriers. Things that make it so that you don't want to hustle, you don't want to work hard, you don't want to change your routine and habits. You're used to doing things a certain way and you get the same results. And so a lot of what we focus on is how you can change that so that you become a more productive human for society and also for yourself.
Speaking of passions, I wanted to ask what's your thoughts on having a vision and like setting goals and stuff versus like somebody that just does something that they love and it kind of just ends up being something like of a success. Like say, for instance, I think Matt Stefanina, he was just dancing and now he's just like, he blew up, right?
I mean, if you have the passion, that's great. Mm-hmm. It depends not just the passion, it's how much you're going to focus on improving upon that skill set. Malcolm Gladwell said there's a 10,000 hour concept. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm working on finding out if that's true based on tracking that for golf. And I'll figure that out many years from now. But I can say, without having completed that process, that I know from personal experience, just putting in the time and effort, if you have the passion, will be what you have to do. I mean, if you have field experience and reference experiences, you're going to build mastery. It's also about studying people that can inspire you from other interdisciplines that are indirectly related to what you're doing. So I know that Matt studied all sorts of dance from all sorts of people. I've met many friends of his that are not just famous in hip hop dance, which is what Matt specializes in. He's epic, best in the world at what he's doing. It's the same thing goes for pretty much anyone who's a master of anything. I mean, in terms of what I'm doing, I didn't study just entrepreneurship. I studied all sorts of things from technology all the way through sales, marketing, science, other companies, random areas of life. I've studied human rights and law and all sorts of random ancillary things that aren't directly related to running a company. But it allows me to be more successful. I know that other people want to be good public speakers or use their public speaking skills and confidence they have to get a pickup. So you have to, and other people will study comedy writing, they'll study improv. These are all things that we actually studied while we were focusing on pickup as well. The art of story. A lot of these things don't necessarily apply just to dating, but it allows you to increase your conversational repertoire, and also by studying various things, you're able to relate to people from different worlds. I think that's really important because there's people from all over the world, from all sorts of disciplines, and in terms of dating and business, you got to do that from other cultures, other backgrounds. I mean, even from, say, the West Coast to the South, or the South to the East Coast, there's so many different kinds of people here in the USA alone. Yeah. And then it's even a little bit more. I mean, there's still a basis of what people think is cool all over the world. I mean, there's kind of like this mainstream kind of movement of what people see as pop culture. At the same time, I remember there was a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt who said, if you only stay in America and just not travel, you will basically be reading the first page of the first chapter of an epic book. I'm not saying that you have to travel, but the basis of what I was trying to convey was the premise that if you explore other kinds of life out there, you're able to expand your repertoire knowledge and have a fuller story, a more engaging, more interesting story. And all these little bits will add to the process of mastery through all sorts of things in your life.